Hi guys, welcome to the fading between screens exercise. This is something, again, a few of you have asked about. We just want to fade things before we move on to the next screen. You could probably translate this structure into doing things before you move to the next screen. So I'm going to show you fading on an image, on a shape, and on the background. But you could also use this exact sort of same structure to, for example, move something on the screen before you incremented the screen. Okay, so here we go. So I've got my tap essay, it's page 1. I'm just gonna, let's just, page 1, page 2 is orange, page 3, page 3, okay, page 1 is blue, page 2 is orange, page 3 is yellow. There we go. So back on page 1. So I'm just going to go to page 2 here, and what we're going to do is we are going to draw in a rectangle. So you can see I'm within my screen 2 conditional. If the screen is 2, I'm going to draw a rectangle. So you can see I've drawn a background. I've got some text saying page 2. I've got a few setup things here. Ignore that for now. Here's my rectangle, and my rectangle is drawn with a variable. So the fill of the rectangle is black, and the opacity is my opacity variable that I've set up here. So I've got a variable set up there to 255 for opacity. So that's fully opaque. Is that right? You can't see through it. It's full opacity. So at the moment that's what we're going to do, and we've drawn our rectangle here. It just sits about there, and it's about this wide. So let's just save that. There's our rectangle. Okay. So what we want to do is that when we click, we want to fade out that rectangle before we move to the next page. So at the moment you click and it just goes to the next page. Where we want to fade the rectangle and then go to the next page. So how we're going to do that is that we are going to, instead of here in the mouse press function, instead of when you press the mouse it just moving to screen, incrementing the screen, yeah. Instead of doing that, we're going to delete that, and we're going to set a fade variable to true. And so this is just saying that we're fading. Yep. So here we've got fade to start with is false. Excuse me, I'll have some coffee. We've set fade to start with as false, and then when you press, we're going to set fade to true. And that means that we can't move to the next page. I'm now clicking here, and nothing's happening. Yeah, I'm just going to, in our draw function or in our click function, I'm going to print our fade variable so you can see what happens. So we're in page 2 here, the fade variable is false. When I click it, it goes to true. Okay, it just stays at true. Yeah, so we're changing that variable, that's great. So if that variable, if we are fading, as in if we've clicked and we've decided we want to start a fade, we're going to, so if fade is true, yeah, remember that is shorthand for that, yeah. So if fade is true, we want to increment the opacity. So we want to, it's not actually increment, it's decrement. Is that a word, decrement? Anyway, it's, let's call it move opacity. Because I'm not sure of decrement being a word. So let's call that function move opacity, and here I just want to change the name of that. So we're going to move the opacity, and we're going to move the opacity down. Yeah, so we're going to go from 255 to 0. So here is our opacity. I could just use the shorthand for decrease opacity as that, but I thought that took a bit long. Okay, so I'm just going to go opacity equals opacity, so the current opacity, minus 2. So the current opacity is 255. If we minus 2, so when this runs the first time, we're going to minus 2 off that, and it's going to be 253. And then it is going to keep doing that every time fade is true until opacity equals to or is underneath 0. So once it's faded out, we want to do something, and that's when we run our increment screen function, which was in here. Yeah, we did have it in there. You can see that screen 1 and screen 3 still have it, but we're only going to move to the next screen once our opacity gets to 0. And now, because that rectangle uses the opacity variable in its alpha channel there on the fill, it's going to fade out, hopefully. So here we are, let's click, it's fading out, and we move to the next screen. Great. Okay, so that can be run out across a few things here. We can do the same thing with an image. The only thing with an image is that, so let's draw our image here. So there's our image. The only thing with image is to do opacity, you need to use the tint function. So you can look that up in P5's reference. The tint function essentially tints it with white and an opacity on that tint. Yeah. So we use the same variable as we did here, and it just reduces, and then we draw our image. So now that should fade out. So we click, there goes our image. Fantastic. Now some of you might want to fade smoothly from the background color orange to this yellow. So the way you do that is, let's make the background of screen 2 yellow as well. So this is the same as screen 3 now, you can see. So that's yellow. So let's just test that. Yep, it's yellow. Okay. And let's draw a orange rectangle in and fade it out. So we're going to have the fill is orange and fade it out in exactly the same way that we do for the other shapes here. So our rectangle is a big rectangle that sits in the middle of the screen, as is the height and the width of the screen. And that is the fill on it, which is orange, and that opacity. So if we press save here, we can see it's orange now. But if we click, we want it to fade from orange to yellow. So it's going to be a smooth transition. Yay. Oh, and we're on page 3. Yeah. So hopefully that helps you guys. I've encountered a bug. Okay, so I think this is because we haven't reset our fade variable. So we want to increment the screen. We want fade to equal false. And we want opacity to equal 255. Now this is only if you're going in a loop. Not many of you guys go in a loop, but for this, let's just see. Okay, we do it once. No, that hasn't worked. Isn't that working? Okay, that's working. And you click on 1. This is live coding, this is fun stuff. So if the opacity, maybe we'll just do it in the increment screen. Let's just do it within this. Again, I don't know whether we should really be doing this. We're inside, this is only for looping. It's only for this example. You're probably not going to need it. So here we go. We're going to fade to page 3. Irritating. Okay, I'm not even going to explain it. What I'll do is I'll fix it in the code, and in GitHub you'll be able to loop it through. Okay, so I'm not going to waste time in this video doing it. It works the first time we go through it, and then we're going to, I'll fix it in the GitHub code. Alright guys, thanks.